recorded your beautiful introduction.
Got it. Yay. And now I'm not gonna be able to speak. Once the thing is right, it's gone.
That's how
I'm
it
the
goes.
learner. I'm not a speaker by trade or profession. I speak through a visual language. So if I trip over any words, it's going to be a very glorious fall. And I hope you enjoy it. It'll be beautiful. I also had a speech impediment for most of my life, and then finally captured words and jumped to being able to articulate the thoughts in the back of my head. So sometimes word enunciation might come through a little bit funky and exciting. So please, I offer take the time to educate me, and I might be like, "Yep, I think I got it, but my tongue can't do it," and we'll get there together. So thank you for bringing me on board. I live outside of the GTA by far now. I moved recently to a little town called Iroquois, Ontario, which, unless you're from Eastern Ontario, you should probably never know where this is. There's 500 people that live in this town. If you take a line straight down from Ottawa and hit the border of America, I'm kind of near there on the St. Lawrence River. It's lovely. Our news is often a cow walking through town, and everyone has to know there is a wild cow loose in town. So it's a very different lifestyle than I had in Toronto, which I'm very thankful for. So it's been impacting me a lot when I've been thinking about what eco-sustainable theater is. So I wanted to start today with a term, if that's okay, not to go into lecture mode of where I'm coming from for the readings, of eco-poethos. And Marta Reed coined it in issue 17 of Doozy. And I'm going to do a little bit of a read of this because the way that she wrote it is so much better than I'll ever be able to speak or articulate. The generative impulse for this issue was in part informed by Timothy Morton's Ecology Without Nature, his challenge to the notion of nature as it is historically been constituted, a nation fundamentally invested in isolating human from the so-called natural world, and that realm from the human one. Constructed through the lenses of political, sociological, economical, environmental, and other tensions, nature, place, and environment are othered and objectified. At the interstices of ecological zones, species, cities, nations, bodies, those permeable borders separating us from them, human from other than human, insider from outside, the vulnerable from the powerful, how might we reconfigure our understanding, encounter the unbounded condition having neither center nor margin? Ecopoethos, or ethos, composes the term household disposition, where oikos, a Greek term sort of meaning house, family, and land ownership, has neither border nor limit, where disposition denotes ethical relation. What Gary Schneider named Earth Household, ecopoethos, was gifted to this issue of the magazine as an amazing work, manifold in its faces, forms, and hybridities, giving voice to that other space, that once familiar place, the unbounded zone of encounter, self and other, human other than human, living and dying, existing in intimate relation, fearless and becoming. There is no away on the surface, no here and no there. I just love that little intro for today, thinking about us coming together from all these different places, from different homes and different environments that have eroded us in different ways to make us who we are. Also, whenever I do lead a room with new people, I'm so happy to be meeting three of you and two of you. It's been a long time and life has taken us on beautiful journeys. I love to instill a few tools that Zoom gives us down in the reactions, lovely little face area that has, if you click it, you can sort of see a bunch of symbols. Sometimes there's an educator one, there isn't here. Essentially, use that O face. We're going to use the O face as the X card logo. Yeah, yay. You give it a little try. Like, I don't like it. I play role-playing games quite regularly, and a tool we use in that world is called the X card system. And once you have a friendship with people, you can use a veils system, which allows you to fade to black on topics that you don't want to talk about. But in this case, I love the X card system. If we start touching a nerve that is just not, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring it up into this room. I don't feel good speaking it or maybe even hosting a conversation on it because it is personal to me in some way. Hit that button and we're just going to move on the conversation. It's just a lovely little safety net until we get to know each other a little bit more. What I find it does actually more than anything, I tend to never use the X card in the end, but it lets us talk very bravely and we can go a little bit further than we might think otherwise without that little safety device in place. So I'm just going to put that out there. If you like it, use it. If you don't like it, let's talk about it. Maybe there's a better system. Also, I wanted to share a trip of mine that changed me a little bit before we get started. I know this is about play reading, and now I'm talking about me. In behind me is a lake, and this is how I've been looking at the pandemic for most of this process. This is Lake Poas in Costa Rica. If the clouds weren't in, you could see the Atlantic Ocean as well as the Pacific Ocean from this peak. It's a very significant place, not only for different culture and religion, but also scientifically. The lake behind me has a pH rating that ranges sometimes between, I did some research here, I'm going to post all this in the chat too for links later, of -1 to 1.5, making this lake essentially battery acid. It is a completely caustic, impossible lake to exist within. But there is one organism that's able to live there called acidphilium, and it is now the route study of what came before us, what's to come after us, and it is used, this lake specifically, for studying life potentially on Mars. So if acidphilium can make it through things of caustic environments, I think we might have the ability to do so with art. Art is very powerful. So on all that note, let's get into some play readings.
Joe, could you spell ecopoethos for me?
Yeah. The term is really new. And it's just bringing together the idea of eco, poesos, and ethos together into one big old word. And I'll send you the links because it's always good to know where things are coming from, and I'm not just talking for the fun of it. The paper on Lake Poas, if you so care about awesome science, as well as X card. If you want to use it for your role playing games going forward, is a Google document. Dropping that in as well. Okay, so our first play on the docket is Truth or Something Like It by Nikhil Katara. I don't know how you usually cast the show, but I think first come, first jump at it might be the easiest. I
That
don't
is
mind
how
taking.
we've been doing it so far. We try to just let people jump in and fill the roles organically. Sometimes we end up with someone reading two characters, but we don't try to like cast or necessarily adhere to gender, age, culture, etc. Yeah, we just sort of let it roll.
Thanks. Can you repeat the current name of the play? Sorry.
We're doing Truth or Something Like It by
Okay.
Nikhil Katara. So if you're in the drive, it'll be under K for Katara.
Thank you.
Welcome. I'll jump on taking the gauntlet just because I've talked already so much of reading all the stage directions at the top of this one. There's a few paragraphs. So I don't mind taking that on if any of you want to embody the characters. I'm so nervous of being a good player. Beautiful. So, right off the top, does everyone have it open? Are we all good to progress into the foray? Wonderful. One of the first conditions of happiness is that the link between man and nature shall not be broken. When the pandemic arrived in India, the government took measures to control it. That meant the country had to be put under lockdown and people had to stay home. But India is a unique country. The cities are built by migrants who come from different states. When the lockdown came, the buses and trains were shut. Some villages were hundreds of kilometers away. Since the migrants had no means to sustain themselves, no homes to stay in, and they lacked hope, many of them preferred to walk home. When the old couldn't walk, their family members came to rescue them. There was an episode of a woman who cycled 1,200 kilometers to save her father. Their long journeys were reminiscent of the Dandi March that Gandhi took during India's freedom struggle. I wondered that it was highly probable to see someone like the Mahatma walking in the midst of the thousands of migrants as they went home. The play stemmed from this episode and the thought of what would happen when the climate crisis takes root. What would happen if more people were displaced? The scale of that for a country like India can't be measured. Note, the playwright encourages the dramatist to perform the stage directions through shadow theater, puppets, and object theater. Shadows pass by. Hundreds of shadows walk across the streets. They are full of people's shadows. Not one face can be seen. Not one can be recognized. Through the shadows we see a woman, Vidya, who is walking confusedly in the village. She seems worried. In a parallel world we see Ghanshyam, I may have said that wrong, walking confusedly too. They both are mere images of each other. He falls and injures himself. He is in pain as the shadows rise and fall like waves. Ghanshyam stands again and limps through the many under-construction roads, now abandoned, under-construction buildings, incomplete, and traffic lights, blinking. The sirens can be heard in the background. Vidya picks up her phone and dials her father. They have a conversation. We can't hear them, but the fear in them is evident. Fade out. The lights fade in. We see Vidya cycling. Fade out. The lights fade in. We see her cycling through the shadows. Fade out. The lights fades in. We see her tired and stopping to grab a glass of water. Fade out. The lights fade in. We see her reading the billboards and using her dupatta as a mask. Fade out. The lights fade in. We see her exhausted and on the verge of tears. Fade out. The light fades in. We see her frustrated with the broken chain of the cycle. Fade out. The light fades in. We see her finally making her way into the city.
Baba, Baba.
She speaks in an incomprehensible manner as the shadows around her rise and fall. The lights fade in, they fade out. They fade in, and fade out again. She faints, her eyes open slowly. We see Mohan coming to help her. He is very old, he has a long stick in his hand, and is bespectacled. He is also a chadar, a shawl, draped over him that goes around his body and covers his face. As a chadar.
Are you okay?
I thought you were my father.
It happens. Many people confuse me for their father.
You look strangely familiar.
Here, drink some water.
Is this the city?
It looks like the city. It smells like the city too.
I'm finding it hard to breathe here.
You know, that tells me you are not from here. If you were, you'd be used to this air by now.
Yes, I'm not. I'm from the village.
But how did you come here? They have locked the state borders, haven't they?
I cycled.
You cycled here?
Yes,
For how long?
for about 600 kilometers.
Mohan, that's my name. And you?
I am Vidya. I am here to take Baba home. I believe there was a lockdown because of the new disease and there was no way to go back. My Baba works here.
Oh, really? What does he do?
Small jobs. He rides the rickshaw. He also takes up some construction work.
He builds the city?
You can say that.
Come, let's go look for your father.
Vidya looks around. The shadows entwine with the other shadows, moving in a strange manner. Mohan rides as pillion. They keep speaking as they ride together. They go past the shadows of people walking.
Thousands are walking home. Thousands.
This city is ruthless.
Cities like this one are formed by the blood and sweat of the people who inhabit it. Some are visible and some invisible to our eyes.
How do you help so many people together?
By starting with one. You started with your father.
Would God forgive me if I didn't?
To a people famished, the only acceptable form in which God can dare appear is work and promise of food as wages.
For anyone who'd see them walking would feel God is dead.
Truth is God. Can truth die?
This truth is disturbing.
It most certainly is, but truth affects everything, and it is affecting our environment, our health, our education systems. How long can we ignore it till it comes and meets us here like this? Can we hide it?
Pause. Vidya looks around and halts.
What are you looking at?
That,
The windmill or the solar panels?
what are those?
Energy.
I haven't seen them yet. In our village, I think they use,
Fossil fuel?
yes.
Things will change now. Our country has strong plans. You see, these forms of energy are special, Vidya. They cause no pollution.
And that will help?
It is a great step, a positive step. If this takes root, then everything will become better. The air would be breathable, the water drinkable.
They should put more of these things everywhere. What are they waiting for?
It will come soon. I think India plans to double these in the next few years.
These developments are great, but there's a gap somewhere.
What do you mean?
I always feel that in the village where I stay, things reach later. My father and many other people who are capable to contribute don't really get the right opportunities. Look at the situation now. Do we exist? Why did no one think about us when they had such a lockdown? Why did they not think about how we will go home?
I know. These big changes and plans are meaningful only when everyone takes part in the journey, not just a few billionaires.
What's a billionaire?
Someone who has 100,000 million rupees in their bank.
That is a lot of money. I had only 2,000 and I spent it buying this cycle.
Well, it was a good deal in the circumstances.
How do these big people with big money make these big plans?
Who told you only big people with big money make the big plans?
Then who else would?
A dedicated government does. An interested group of people who are concerned about the future do. Sometimes little children do too.
Children? You're joking.
No, I'm serious. In fact, young girls like you came together for the cause of climate change. Greta Thunberg, Sarah Blazvek, Darshini Prakash, Likki Priya, Kangyujam. There are so many examples. The biggest conversation in the world right now is around the Green New Deal, and it is led by a young politician herself.
Is this some sort of new law?
It isn't just some new law, it is something worth fighting for, the future. The scientists think there is little time before climate change will destroy the planet. If things continue this way, cities like Mumbai will be lost underwater in a few decades.
If that happens, where will the people go? There will be so many who will be trapped like my father is right now. No, that can't happen. What can I do?
Think.
Am I capable?
You most certainly are.
Vidya is confused.
No ordinary person cycles 600 kilometers on the national highways of India to save someone's life.
604 now. 4 kilometers have passed with you riding pillion.
And quite an effortless ride it is.
Oh, look there. That is my father. We found him.
Please stop.
Now I think I should get off. I need to make room for your father.
It was nice speaking to you.
I will remember this conversation. Take care on your way back home.
The journey doesn't end there.
I know. You are one for the long road.
As long as I have my cycle, I'll keep going.
I'm sure you will.
Mohan offers his blessings and smiles. He slowly begins to walk as the shadows make way for him. Vidya watches as the silhouette of the old man with the long stick grows smaller and smaller until it merges with the other shadows. Fade to darkness. The end. Nikhil Katara is from Mumbai, India. He started his journey in theatre with his own production title called The Unveiling. He has a degree in philosophy from the Mumbai University and has written for the One India, One People magazine, Free Press Journal, and the Journal of Sam Bashan on a regular basis. He teaches the BVOC course, Theatre and Stagecraft at Wilson College. He is the artistic director of Readings in the Shed and has directed and co-written the play, The Bosie Legacy. Thank you for reading. And you move your faces back to where my camera is. So I guess initial thoughts on that. I love that it starts with the bicycle, just because we there's a lot of different theater companies using bicycles essentially to either move their shows around, but also to power projects for lighting. I think that could be a really interesting concept if the show is almost powered with that darkness and light that keep coming on, with the sense of that kinetic energy. I don't know what else to talk about. That's just a starting spot, a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they say the note, the playwright encourages the dramatist to perform the stage directions through shadow theater, puppets, and object theater. So I was wondering, like, as I was imagining, I was really imagining like puppet theater. But then as I started reading, it seemed like it could also be real people. So there might be like a transition of form at some point.
Yeah, or even like a dual world happening, maybe. Like
Yeah,
there's-
it's interesting that they said, I think they said like in a separate universe or in a parallel world in like the opening text. And I'm like, oh, like how do you have parallel worlds on stage? I love that. And like for the idea of playing with scale and like real people and shadow puppet people, I love that idea. I think like, yeah, shadow puppets would be such a amazing way to show the scale. Like they're talking about thousands of people walking, and that's like very hard to imagine. because like it's so stark. Like what an incredible image to like attempt to create. Like I could definitely imagine like creating like, yeah, puppets of like crowds of people and casting shadows, possibly like on a stage wall or surface in such a way that they were in scale with human actors, so that it has that feeling of like a huge crowd, even if you just have two visible performers. It could be so very interesting.
Yeah, that seems like an important part of like start the sense of the masses would be an important design challenge for the beginning.
I think to add a layer in there with sound as well. There doesn't necessarily have to be the tech of like binaural sound design, but simply, you know, having your venue with speakers just in multiple places so that there is a bit of a surrounding and immersing audience effect. It helps to bring them into the cityscape more sonically.
I love that. I like the darkness that keeps getting referred to as the masses making the shadows, like that idea of the fringe of the theater having that darkness where the sound emanates and where the crowds come from. It's going to be wild. And I also wonder if there's a way to break even the perspective, like going into that discussion of alternate universes, of what happens if something passes the foreground that's quite large as a closer human shadow form. So you're seeing almost through this forest of people, essentially. The two characters there.
It could be possible to have technicians who are roving with lights physically, so that part of that effect gets created by like the beams that are going across the audience people who are physically present. I think in that kind of scenario, you know, there needs to be set up inviting the audience to, okay, this is going to be kind of an interactive space. There's going to be these kinds of sensory inputs, so people will be consenting to what they encounter. But I could see that happening successfully. That kind of like the lower tech aspect of, okay, and just bringing in that sense of reality to it, like the visibility is being blocked because like it's being blocked by those actually present.
I love that idea, Celie. Like I'm imagining what you're describing, like almost like a half round, like maybe floor seating or like just some sort of amphitheater like space where a technician could walk like behind the audience in an arc with a light, and then that light's being cast and like their shadows and heads are casting like a moving shadow on the, you know, wherever the performers are. I think that could be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah, especially because they go back into shadow. Like it ends with the older man going back into the shadow.
yeah, maybe even some recording of like people who have been congregating in the lobby beforehand and just like their chatter, like, you know, or from backstage, like it's more about just getting kind of the murmuring sound effect, right? And not the specific words, but there could be a way to kind of tweak that sound effect enough to give it this, you know, a little more urgent or maybe ominous kind of feeling, depending on how far you want to go with that atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
I think that also the idea of, so I wasn't even picturing her on the bike the entire time, but now that, and then at the end she said that she's still biking. And there was one line where she said that like, it's been 604 kilometers with you riding pillion. Is that like a biking term? Like what does that mean?
I Go ahead.
Because he's on behind her, so he's like physically on the bike with her. Is the way I thought the Napoleon is.
It's like riding doubles.
Right.
Yeah.
That is actually okay. Great, of course, because she's going to find her father and bring him home, presumably on a bicycle. So interesting. Yeah, I would. Sorry, go on.
Oh, that makes me think like the old man could be more of a like ghost-like character than a real character. Like maybe he's represented by the puppet, like a life-size puppet, or even a small puppet. Like, I don't know.
Him being kind of ghosty was how I took it from the beginning when he said, like, a lot of people think I'm their father. It really felt like he wasn't quite a real person she was with, but more the idea and all of that. So yeah, I think him being either smaller or bigger than her in scale within puppet wise could be a very cool thing for this, especially considering his ideas become so big and she feels small, but then she comes and feels confident again by the end.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Yeah, especially if he looks like exactly like her father, like, do we get to see her father at the end? I don't know. Or does she sort of just say like, he's over there and we don't really see him?
It wouldn't be necessary to cast him and to actually play the father.
Yeah, wouldn't not be strictly necessary. But
yeah, he could be a shadow or just like unseen. I bet people would imagine if he didn't show the father, imagine whoever or whatever plays the Mohan. They would just imagine the father as Mohan because they look alike.
But then there's like a really interesting relationship there that there's a father playing with a puppet with his daughter. So there's this sort of scene playing out. It's rather touching.
Yeah, and then there's the puppet operator. I mean, I'm just saying puppet. I think there was like so many, the author gave like options of what it could be. Shadow theater. Yeah, it could be shadow, puppets, or object theater. So it could be anything, but
you could have him riding paladin just by kind of like rear projecting as well onto like a scrim or something, so that it's like just a shape in behind her instead of an actual thing.
Oh, and that's got me thinking of sound now. Of like, what if it is just sound from a very specific point behind the audience, so it sounds like the person's talking over their shoulder in their ear. That's sensory. That would need some more.
To like put them in the position of the person on the bike. Well, then maybe the audience is on bikes and they're powering the show. Because I was thinking like, if video was on a bike and her bike was powering the lights of the, whatever, the shadow or the transitions, and maybe there's a natural fluctuation in like her pedaling and like how it affects the light. But like if it was the audience doing it, that could be a really cool way to approach it, to like make it like they're hearing the voice in their ear. They're like having the exhaustion experience of the video character and somehow like being cast in the play. Pretty interesting.
Great. Are we ready to move while we're still fresh and sharp on this one to the next play, or do we have some more thoughts? We're itching to get out on this one. Shannon,
I feel like there's a lot of thoughts there. I was just wondering if this has already been claimed as a seed concept.
It hasn't. So wait, no, it has. But you can do.
Yeah, lots of people are doing more than one. Or
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
No, I need to get on top of claiming.
Claiming, I don't know. I mean, signing up,
Yeah.
I still have one more to sign up for.
Oh, do you have like a certain amount that you were planning on doing, or?
My goal is to do 3.
Nice.
So
I signed up for 2, but I'll definitely I'll aim for doing 3. But I will probably double up on a play because there's so many that I've been inspired to do that other people are also inspired by.
So our next play today is Friends for Life. by Himali Kothari, or Kothari? Has anyone met this author and knows the pronunciation?
I can jump in with the stage directions
Wonderful.
or the intro. Friends for Life by Himali Kothari. The Green New Deal is about inclusiveness. It is about involving more groups and perhaps those categories of humans who may not have been considered as being potential contributors towards creating global change. When I chanced upon the stories of Jal Sahilis, it struck an immediate chord. In Hindi, Jal means water and Sahili means friend. Thus, Jal Sahilis is a friend of water. The initiative that started with a small group of women in a village in central India has now extended to over 200 villages and brought 700 women into its fold. These women have taken on the task to enable availability of drinking water and water for irrigation in this arid region. From building dams, cutting through hills, repairing water pumps, and mobilizing the community to participate in this endeavor, the stories of these women fascinated me. In a society where women's role as change makers is often overlooked, to see these women assert themselves as ambassadors of change, not just within their community, but also at the global level, is heartening. Setting: an arid landscape. Characters: Navia, a young woman in her 20s. She is dressed in a sari with the drape covering her head. Her sari is a vibrant color, but a little stained with dirt, like the clothes of someone who has been doing manual labor. Through the play, she is busy with activity. She keeps looking at a particular spot somewhere in front of her, beyond the audience at eye level, craning her neck in expectation, waiting for something. Her glances are confident, like someone who knows that what she waits for will be there, just a matter of time. Amma, a woman in her 50s. She could have a couple of earthen pots at her feet. She is dressed in a sari with the drape covering her head. Her sari is of similar hue as Navia's, but much faded from use, something that has seen better days. Periodically through the play, she looks skywards, always upward, never at the point Navia is looking at, stretching in anticipation, waiting for something. Her glances are hopeful, tinging on desperation. Occasionally, she may fold her hand in prayer as she looks up. Both are at different ends of the stage, largely unaware of each other. They could be standing or sitting on chairs facing the audience. Occasionally, when one is speaking, the other could get up or move forward or look at her specific point. They address their lines to the audience.
Anytime now.
Anytime now.
A few moments pass as they continue to look at their specific points.
It's hot, huh? Hottest summer yet, they say in the village. How hot? Let's see. A month ago, I would get water from the village well. And then 2 weeks ago, I let my bucket in and heard the clang of the metal on the parched bottom. That dreaded sound. I've been hearing that clang for a few decades now. But it still hurts the ear every year. It's come sooner this year than the last. I peered over the edge, hoping. Not a drop left. Had it seeped through and run off elsewhere? I would have to make my way to the pond on the other side of the hill. The rain clouds were not here yet. I had hoped that it would be a few days before I'd have to start walking all the way there. But pots have to be filled. Food has to be cooked. So I hoisted both my pots on my head and took off.
It's not new, you know, this walk for water. I've been doing it since I was a little girl. Towards the end of the summer, the walk would take so long. I would have to miss school. Frankly, that bit I didn't mind. I never understood it, this wait, endless staring towards the heaven, walk and wait, wait and walk. The longer the wait, the longer the walk. And every year, both were getting longer.
That was 2 weeks ago. One look inside and I knew that this pond had a few days left. It was already many inches below the dark line that the water had marked it with when it was full. And when I leaned into it and narrowed my eyes, I could see the bottom. It was not going to last very long. What next? How far to the next one? There was some excitement at the village when I got there. My heart skipped a beat. Had we been showered with a miracle? Had the well filled up? I peered in. No, nothing. Some man was standing by it, speaking in a loud voice. Tube well, dam, fresh water. He seemed familiar. Had he been here before?
They come every 4 years, walk through our village in starch white shirts, smiling stretched over their faces, hands folded. Long speeches filled with promises would echo through the village, and then silence. Silence and swirling clouds of dust as they retreat.
The sky was a different shade yesterday, a little less blue. The sun didn't bounce off the earth as hard. I was so sure yesterday would be the day. The clouds would burst and I would line up the pots outside my house and wait for them to fill up. But no, nothing. And at the pond, when I scooped my bucket in, it scraped the bottom. Another week, if we were lucky. No, don't think about that, I told myself. By then, for sure.
Enough! I was done with the waiting. Nobody was going to sort this out for us. Fetching the water was our job after all, and you know what they say, don't send a man to do a woman's job. I rounded up friends and they rounded up a few more. I had a plan. Water flows, so why are we foolishly walking to it? We are not going to the water, I told them. The water is going to come to us. It was not easy, and it's done now. Anytime now.
Long pause during which Navia continues to look at her point and Amma continues to look skyward. The gurgling sound of water followed by a little gush, like water bursting through a newly laid pipe. Navia jumps up and down and claps her hands in glee. Amma looks at her bamboozled by her actions.
What's wrong with you, girl? Have you gone mad?
It is here, Amana. It's here.
Where? Where?
There, Amma. Look there.
Amma looks at the spot. The gurgling sound of water becomes louder. Bewilderment slowly changes to joy on Amma's face. Navia grabs Amma by the wrists and holding her hands compels her to spin around in a couple of circles like two little girls playing. When they stop, they stand shoulder to shoulder, embracing each other in a side hug, huge smiles on their face, tears running down their cheeks, and stare steadfast at that spot. The end. Writer-editor Himali Kothari loves being led on a merry chase by words as long as she can eventually get the better of them. A believer in the power of words to effect change, it is what she seeks to do in her own small way.
Like the happy ending. It's interesting where my headspace started with the potential seeding completely shifted by about halfway through the work, which was good. So I'm still sort of computing it a bit. Like my first instinct, I will share it, but I don't think it's right anymore, was this like, Shannon, you'd actually totally enjoy this idea. A balancing sort of platform that is on a point between the two women, and in the middle of it is this well sort of at center. And the movement to either one would throw off the balance of the two, which I thought would be potentially interesting. And I got really like into, that's why I disappeared so much. You're like, will this work? I started sketching a little bit of like if there was like a clay surface on the top of it so that if it does fall or hit, it would crack and you'd see sort of either a tile or something underneath it. Ridiculous big thought. Not necessarily great. But then I realized, oh no, but there is this coming together at the end, so that wouldn't work. That's a wrong image, but it was a good starting one, to say the least. Maybe, for me.
I think if they came together, if they're on a balancing point, if they walked at the same time,
Yeah.
then they could not tip it if it was a teeter-totter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the image too, this teeter-tottering idea, and that could work really well. And I was trying to figure out what do these 2 points represent for them? And like, is it waiting on a higher being power or even a political power, or is it looking at more lateral solutions such as building this pipe? But I think that means something different for everyone reading it. So I'm curious what people thought the points are.
Well, the baseline of their condition mutually is precarity, right? And so I think that could work well to kind of represent having to kind of tread carefully in life. But yeah, it could be done. It takes some practice for the actors to, like perform the walking and kind of get their sea legs, as it were. But it could be interesting to play with that.
Mm-hmm. I think like the idea of them like coming together is a really like useful metaphor, but like that also the idea of them looking out and like with expectation and then realizing that they can't just wait is like the journey of the play to me. So like, the direction of the sky is like natural systems, but also potentially God, like she's waiting for rain. Whereas Navia, it seems like she's somehow looking to the future, but it also to me related to these men who come and like are ineffectual every 4 years, which I like interpreted as like politicians with promises, and they like leave in a cloud of dust as in they don't bring any water with them. And so like, yeah, I feel like that tension would be something to explore. But then this whole like I'm done with waiting thing, like I rounded up friends and they rounded up, like that is like so much more of an action that it's hard, like it's not, I don't know how we would stage that, but it's like the opposite of waiting and the opposite of just like looking out. So yeah,
it really seemed to me like that was putting a picture in my mind of them building some kind of like water flow system, right? Because she says like the water's going to come to us. So then it almost felt like there could be an inserted like series of tableaus or like physical action of them making aqueducts. Like that's what I kind of was imagining, her action. Because otherwise, if the like gathering of these friends and friends of friends isn't directly resulting in the pipe providing water, then it seemed to me like the pipe ended up working in the end. Like someone flipped a switch somewhere far off in the distance and water started flowing. So I'm not sure exactly what the author was intending there. It seemed open to interpretation.
Tangent but related idea that's just coming is about, so the way that these pots can be constructed is there's like a few options, right? Like traditionally, I think they're earthen, but then also in reality, many water collecting pots nowadays would be metal or plastic. So it does depend on the material that's used, but I started to envision something like, I don't know, like pots that's been left dry for so long. That something that happens is that starting to break them, but using kind of like the curve, a half of a pot, and then like laying the pieces and kind of constructing this pipe length from these broken pot pieces next to each other, like, to bring any more concept of realism to it, there'd have to be obviously like cutting down pieces formally, using a mortar to, like secure them together. But yeah, I feel like there's something interesting conceptually with like giving up on the utility of the waiting to use the method of going to collect the pots, and can we transform them to make the passage more direct toward the villagers ultimately.
Mhm. I think that it would be interesting to have like a dance piece, like intervention, like right in the middle of this play, like something to like, yeah, like give that journey of work and effort and like of women specifically, like just like doing it for themselves. And I guess I was imagining like maybe using fabric to like play the flow of water, and like somehow like whether Amma and Navi are like the two performers playing them like aren't literally themselves, but like did some kind of movement sequence that like showed them like bringing water over a long distance. Like, I don't know. That was my first set, but I think this like impulse of like showing the work and showing the creation of a new system is like interesting. And my like instinct was to do it through dance, but I don't know why.
I'm really feeling what you're saying, Celie, though, with this idea of those pots, because there's also a nod to the tradition of the walk that's been done before, that's been done for so long, again and again and again, and these artifacts being repurposed, or not even repurposed, the same purpose, but in a different method, is really nice. It's kind of it's very poetic.
Yeah, the idea of like layering broken pots also seems to me like it could look like water, like a sort of wave-like pattern.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm not sure, like in this sort of metaphorical, maybe dance or movement-based scene that we're inventing for the playwright, maybe the construction is more like metaphorical. The construction of a pipe or like a path for the water that ends up also like just being the representation of the water flowing. That would be cool.
Yeah, water flows, so why are we foolishly walking to it? I think that's like the water coming to us is like that big journey. And yeah, the idea of like, yeah, using the pots or whatever they walked with to like bring it to them, it's like such a beautiful metaphor.
I'm seeing and hearing sounds of bubbling water now. It's pouring down through a series of broken pieces of mortar.
It's possible that whatever this official like visiting a hydrological assessor or whatever role this person has, I don't know, maybe there could be like maybe use of projection, so big like print just a little bit of phrasing on a form that expresses, this well site has been assessed that it's like the pattern of where the water even goes in the like earth has shifted enough that it's expected to never yield water at that spot again. And so maybe, at bricks like construction of the well itself, maybe those are some of the components that start to be kind of deconstructed and then repurposed to make this larger pipeline. Maybe that makes it a little too elaborate, but just thinking of a way to really emphasize the shifting from a historic method that is not working anymore for people in this locality to how do they then change it to pursue this new method.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag right now, it is 10:55 a.m., so I'm wondering if anyone needs a bio break. We're hitting the midway point of our session today. If you need to fill up on tea, water, or the like.
Sure. That'd be good.
I'm gonna go. I need to say goodbye for today, actually, but glad to join for this bit. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes next.
It's a pleasure meeting you, hopefully in person sometime.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Seely.
Cool.
See you
Bye.
soon.
I think this might be a great time to take a bio break since we are losing some faces, just to refresh ourselves as well. So, is 5 or 10 minutes best for people? What would people be more comfortable with?
I'm good with 5, but it can be like a loose 5.
5 it is. So see you all at 10, not 10, 11:01 to 11:05 to 11:10
Well,
to noon.
it's
You
also
don't have to come back.
it's also Remembrance Day.
Yes.
So at 11, I'm going to take a minute of silence.
I was going to say thank you for reminding me. I was going to say at the top, I wanted to hit a break right now for those that do observe so that they can, and those that choose not to don't feel pushed upon to have to observe with us. So
Great. So yeah, we'll meet back shortly after 11.
fantastic. So let's say nice 11:05, which sounds like a great time. Give us 7 minutes. See you all soon. Hello.
Whoops, forgot to pause the recording.
Oh, but we had a really lovely long break there. That's nice. It's real-time viewing.
Yeah, exactly.
The people watching can take a break.
Indeed.
So, Bonnie, where are you located?
I am currently in Calgary, but originally I am from Coldwater, Ontario. So and my significant other lives in Petawawa, so I do know where your little tiny town is.
Amazing! I have some family in Petawawa at the base. Well, husband marriages through different marriages. So many marriages to get to this person. So I know Petawawa too. I spent some time there in the fog.
But yeah, at the moment I'm at school at the University of Calgary here.
Oh, good morning then. It's quite early for you. Are you in the scenography course?
Yes, I'm taking my master's in. I'm a design/technical candidate specialist.
Fantastic. And Andrew, I have not met you before either. So where are you? Your workshop looks so fascinatingly full of goodies behind you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm from Toronto, but I'm currently at the UFT wardrobe because I'm working on the opera here. So this is the space here.
I love a good
Andrew,
wardrobe.
are you the supervisor for the current show or are you the designer?
I'm a co-head of wardrobe with
Okay.
another person who I went to Ryerson with.
Oh, so
But yeah.
cool. And is it the Barbara Seville? Is it the show you're
Yeah.
working on right now?
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're doing that. I hope you keep working there because I'm designing a show for them in the winter, spring. So
Oh, that's exciting.
I don't know if this is just a one-off for you, but it'd be cool to work
Yeah,
there.
I think it's just for this contract, but yeah.
What theater is it?
The UFT opera.
Oh, nice.
It's so exciting. Can't wait till our paths recross and reconvene on this wildlife journey. So welcome back. I hope you had a good moment to yourselves. We are now moving into 2079 by Camila Le-Bert.
Oh, shoot. I need to take a sec to plug in.
Plug in. Battery matters.
How did we pick the play order? Is it like just random or is there a system?
I think there's a system of alphabetical by playwright that we're using and we're working through, but if a play was really enjoyed by one of the hosts previous that wanted to hear it with words, they move some up, so we jump a little bit over things that have been covered already. I think I might be wrong. This is what I'm just I'm guessing and talking as if I have authority. I'm just guessing. That's how it's been going. I received the list and it seemed that made sense.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that Dream Song was read in one of Tanya Beer's eco-scenography reading groups. So like they selected plays really specifically based on themes for their reading groups. So yeah, we're just trying to get through all of them.
This is so lovely. I would love to offer it. I want to talk to you more. This is being recorded about working this into course content if I get offered back when I have a little bit more power in the design of the content, because I think more student work is good.
Yes.
Like undergrad student work. I think master's student work, yes, but getting undergrads really interested and excited by seeding concepts would be a really nice skill. So this one's pretty much a monologue. I don't know who's wanting to jump into that one. I'm willing to venture forth if you want. I no promise. I'm not a great reader, but unless someone's like, I want to read a monologue. No one jumping for it?
I can read it. You've done a lot of reading, so I'm happy to.
I just read stage directions. I haven't actually done a character yet.
Okay, well, you do it. You should do it. Take on a character.
And then I won't read the next 3. Will someone read the stage directions, though, to give me a second to read ahead?
Sure, I can. I'll do the stage directions. Okay. 2079 by Camila Le-Bert. The inspiration for this play is a mix of utter despair and anxiety on the subject of climate change, the abysmal pain of losing of many loved ones last year, and the hope brought about by the 2018 social uprising in Chile. When Chile desperado, Chile awakened, and we found a collective struggle and unity calling for a change of everything. The system that had made us feel like we had failed had in fact failed us, and we came together as never before to bring it down. Now, in the throes of writing a new constitution, we continue once again to struggle to keep the power with the people and away from the oligarchy, the 1%.
When I was a kid, I was a member of the Junior World Wildlife Fund. Every month, I get a magazine with a little black and white bear and some monkeys, a dolphin, a cheetah. I always liked cheetahs. I was never a Girl Scout, but I had my little black and white bear badge, and I felt like I had a duty to protect the planet. A lone ranger. If I saw someone throwing a piece of garbage on the floor, I would yell, "Litter! Litter!" It was a capital sin. I guess I wasn't really raised in the church. My family was more along the lines of non-practicing Marxists, if you really get down to it. Litter! It was like, but I imagine that's how religious people feel about sin, going against the divine. Litter! You're killing the whales, the cheetahs, the little black and white bears. I would run to pick up the trash and hold on to it until I found a garbage can, and my mission was accomplished. I threw out my grandma's cigarettes too. My kid mind could not understand how someone could purposefully kill themselves every day. She wanted to kill me. I think she wanted to strangle her little gringa granddaughter for being so fucking McGruff. I had been brainwashed by the Empire, she must have thought. But cigarettes were the least of her problems. She had survived the fight for a fair world and the violent backlash of the elite and its military minions, exile, the destruction of her country and her dreams. And now that I'm older, I see the lure of a little death. Life is exhausting. My grandfather died last year, at 97. If I lived to be 97, I would have to wait until 2079 to die. 2079. Chile has the 4th highest suicide rate in the Americas. You know who kills themselves more? Men over 70. Death is everywhere. You know what pension the state gives you in Chile? 158,339 pesos a month. $223.96 a month. That's what you get when you have no savings. Like me. Like most of my friends. I don't want to make it to 2079. I've been to this cemetery so much. I have a regular spot in the parking lot. Not a lot in the graveyard. I don't own anything. I always wanted my own apartment, but I've been living as an alligator since 2017. Alligator is what people in Chile that live in someone else's house because they either can't afford their own place or a catastrophe has taken their house. An earthquake, a tsunami, a fire, a mudslide. We have a lot of alligatos. A lot of people crammed together and a lot of natural disasters. We are also the birthplace of neoliberalism, aka capitalism that respects no one and no thing. They sold everything. Schools, water, gas, the phone company, the roads. You can't walk a block around your house in Chile without someone charging you for something. They also call it entrepreneurship. We faked it so long we actually thought we made it. Now we're going to bury neoliberalism. We are leaving our little apartments and we are taking back to the streets. These are our roads. This is our water and this is our air. And it isn't woo. I'm not a hippie and it's not impossible. We can share. We can stop pretending we are going to be one of them because we're not. We're all one paycheck away. I'll meet you halfway. There are other ways to do things. We just proved it. And we'll find Garcia Lorca in the watermelons. And we'll do more than just survive. And we won't believe the lies because we know better. We will know better. We, dare I say it, will have class consciousness and we will tell them to trickle down their own economics. We won't have to break our souls smiling for a tip. You won't have to wait for me to be good because we won't depend on charity or crowdfunding support to pay for life-threatening surgery because we will take care of each other. We don't want things back to normal. My friends can make a difference. Take back the internet, copy or die, free the PDFs. I got you. It wasn't depression, it was capitalism. Huddled masses, broken bones making history. For all of those who came before me, we can do it. Things change. I don't regret throwing out Nina's cigarettes. It's been a while since I saw someone throw garbage on the ground. Litter bugs are going extinct. And the white and black bears are still around. Let's check out 2079.
Camila Le-Bert is a Chilean-American playwright living between Santiago, Chile, and Long Beach, California. Graduate of the MFA in playwriting from Columbia University and acting from Universidad de Chile. Her works include Chan, developed with the Royal Court Theatre, Latino, Trio, La Guagua, Miss Tres Hermanas, and Chicos Toxicos. Her play, Comunidad, was featured in the Delirios and Cautiverio at the Chilean National Theatre in 2020. She is founder and director of the Lapis de Mina Women's Playwriting Festival. I used to be able to pronounce things in Spanish a bit better.
I do too. Same when I'm reading though. I'm already through the word and I put emphasis in the wrong place, and then it's all downhill from there.
You were quite good. You're quite good.
It's interesting. It's neat because it's where she starts is the same as where she is. She's still yelling glitter, but in a very different way, in a very empowered way, which I like. With it's not just sort of the talking points when we're younger, where we will say a word and love and try it on for size, but now there is substantial critical mass behind the words, and you can feel it, which was hard to read in a good way. That I wanted to get more I needed to get my feet in more to say the words. It's interesting, and as a monologue, how does it exist in space is kind of fascinating to me. That when people shows are always this sort of where, especially when there's nothing linking it to specific place that maybe nationally, but not specific, sentimentally.
Yeah, it really seemed like it was in a theater.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was telling a story in a kind of bare bones way.
I don't think it's right, but I would be really curious to workshop it with a megaphone. Just you're trying to read it through the, what would it be like as a call out? Like when I say this line, yell out glitter, some form of connecting to others over maybe volume. But again, there's so much personal content that's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I definitely imagined a microphone,
yeah,
for sure. So I'm like, there's shades of this that are like a campaign speech, and then there's shades of it that are like storytelling in a cabaret, with some dim lighting and people sitting around tables just listening.
It's a call to action in many ways, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's also it's entertaining. It's serious but light. This person could be very funny. I like the idea of a cabaret setting because I feel like it could be both powerful and casual.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like it needs a lot of design. It just seems like it needs the right context or the right audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the design is personal to both probably the performer. It needs to have that sense of little detail, such as the stickers and the badges. I kind of love that idea of how we now wear what we want to support. We still do. We still label ourselves in support. For her, where it started was the little World Wildlife Fund, but now what would those symbols, what would those badges be as an adult? I still see that little badge on, probably falling off a little bit, frayed at the side, some of the threads pulling up, but that panda's holding on.
Yeah, maybe costume is the biggest thrust here,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that there's so many stories that I think bringing in the different aspects of these stories would be interesting. One idea I had was a slide projector and just bringing in different images and having that be part of this presentation. And then another thing I thought was having costume design that was really storied, or some kind of I don't know, like tapestry. Like I'm thinking about these like plastic bags and cigarettes and like, you know, some kind of like woven textile that like incorporates little bits of these stories, but like is also just something completely different that like brings in colors and like memories somehow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like my coffee's kicking in if you can't tell I'm being talkative. Uh, the idea that when she was younger she collected garbage and carried it around. I used to do that too. And the metaphor there is super powerful that we now as adults pick up garbage and we carry it around with us until we can dispose of it. But finding those receptacles to dispose some of the garbage we carry now as adults, thank you for therapy. But like it's hard to find where to place it now that we pick up this uh, it's the same trash. It just has different meaning now because we know why it's there. Right?
Mhm.
Maybe. So I'm wondering what that means, like cinemagraphically, I suppose. How do we show picking up a traumatic uprising?
Mm.
And I
And
find it interesting because she's carrying around something physical, but her issues are not as much with modern, like it's not like the warming or the ocean. It's more about very financial, like the 99% being suppressed and people in Chile in particular, like being this high suicide rate because of it. It's so much more intense than just the actual physical movings of what's going on in the world. I think if you were to do kind of like a slideshow thing happening in behind her, I think you could get very dark in that section.
yeah, and some humor that's pointed in a good way. Like there's a dark humor to it too. Like that suicide rate analogy also to be like, hey, the 1%, 77-year-old men, uh, we're the same, but not at all. Like it's really kind of we can do these equations of relation, but it's not equitable. We still can't do it. So. The slideshow could be really interesting. I like that concept of the images, that there's a presentational side of it, but there's like a true side of it too. So there is a danger, a good danger, not a bad danger, of getting really close to something extremely specifically now and a reflection on things happening politically now, or not just in 2019, but still unfolding in Chile, that there's an educational component to it. Without it needing to be educational because it is one perspective of someone that's surviving it. Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you for listening to the read.
I have one other design idea, but I don't know if it's right. But like, but like maybe the performer is smoking a cigarette like as they give the
Yeah.
speech, because like I just feel like it will show their like the change in them as a person and like you know,
They
and like that idea that they said they
Great.
could go for a little death, or I don't know what the line was, but it was really like
Oh, let me find it. It's buried behind your faces. Move it over to the screen. Little death, little. Nope. I'm
oh, I
searching.
see the lure of a little death. Yeah, I'm like that's like very relatable. Life is exhausting.
Yes. I also found the script interesting because there is a lot of sarcasm in it and nihilism, but it's hard to sometimes tell what is supposed to be sarcastic and what is actually a point. And I really enjoy that conflict in it, like what that gives to a performer and a director and a creator, like our team, um,
Mhm.
because it's the point is clear, but it's at the same time, what is some of the small nuances? And I like it. I like it a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like an inner conflict to like be really, really hopeful and genuine and like about something when you can like nihilism like kind of is overtaking. So I love that like they're finding a journey to hope and like activism like through this piece and like but like there is like I don't know. I definitely relate to the tension of like wanting to stand for something and also feeling like things are ineffectual or like being contrite is like distasteful or I don't know, all of those
Oh,
things
totally.
coming together.
I just did that like sustainability class. Now this is personal anecdotals. Um, And I said, we need to talk about things, like review things, review the course. Also, let's be real. I just drove here to tell you this course really far. That's stupid. Like, that's insane. Why are we traveling together to tell these things when we could just do it digitally like this? So yeah, like how do we move stuff forward while also being critical of our own impacts? Anyway, that's a bigger topic for another time. Shall we move on? Any not final words. There's never final words in the seeding concepts of this project.
Okay, so I know it's one performer, but when I was like listening, I could see it being like a chorus almost. I have different people like what's the word? Like just someone says something and then stops and someone else brings up a different point. And that way there's multiple kind of characters now in the story, which each having a different experience and like different point of views about things. Does that make sense?
Totally. And it brings an aggregate together of the piece, which is nice.
Yeah, it sounds like, it feels like there's space for that because she does talk about her grandma, her grandpa, and then she refers to her grandma again by a different name, which could be just like, totally colloquial references, but also, yeah, it could be a hint of splitting all those people into different families.
And there's specificity of each of the sentences that each have a point. I actually love that it's structured with the paragraph break between each line. That there is a change in tack or in punctuation emotionally between each one of these lines. I think there's a different tactic every time a line is said, which really lends itself to the choral notion.
And even like having a character who's like the not the Girl Scout, but the girl collecting litter throughout. Like you could have different, like one character, but different ages and points of their life, if that makes sense. That way one person's still reading, but it's more like the action can be shown by like, oh, this was her as a child, or this was her now. Yeah.
2079, that time doesn't sound real to me. It sounds like a futuristic date, but that's going to be in our lifetimes, hopefully. But like it sounds so future. It doesn't.
Yeah, 97. If I'm alive and I'm 97, I'm doing the math, guys.
Yeah. Calculator time.
Yeah, it'll be 2087.
2079.
All right.
20, so I'll be 89.
I'll be 90. Yeah. Wow.
We can do it. We got it, guys. We'll be there.
I'll start liking kale a little bit more. Get those super leaves in me. Fantastic. Let's move over now to Zizi Majid's cost.
Yep.
I think that's next on the list of order.
Lovely seeing everyone today. I've got to go now.
Oh, sadness.
Nice
Okay,
to
bye.
be
Have a
here.
great day.
Bye, Bonnie.
Bye, Bonnie. Nice to meet you.
And then there were 4. Excellent. Let's just jump in. There's 4 of us. I don't know how many characters there are. Let me look ahead. 1, 2,
3.
3.
Yeah.
Great, so we might all end up being a reader, and if no one wants to, that is fine. You can just pass the veritable speaking. So I'll start with, I guess, the stage direction, unless someone wants to not be a character and they want to do stage directions right now. All good? Inspiration for the play. Cost. An enduring fact of climate change is that those who are least responsible bear the brunt of its consequences. In this play, I imagine what it would be like if there had been some positive progress made vis-a-vis the Green New Deal and private nonprofits that had persuaded global carbon emitters to cut financial risk associated with climate catastrophe. Yet, there would still be those in the developing world dealing with the consequences of calamitous energy production. Characters. Oh, all the answers right there when I was looking for characters and I scrolled through the script like a non-theater worker. Ashok Milwani, mid to late 40s, Indian American, CEO of EcoInvest. Oh. Christine Mawani née Jones, early 40s, white American, Ashok's wife. Benji Mawani, early 20s, Indian, Ashok's son from his first marriage. Scene 1, 2025. A luxury suite in the most exclusive hotel in Mumbai, India. Ashok and Christine are in formal evening dress.
Do that last bit again.
What last bit?
The carbon reduction, yada yada.
Right. The levels of carbon reduction we have managed to hold companies accountable for have far exceeded expectations. The strong partnership,
Symbiotic's better.
the symbiotic partnership between EcoInvest and the Indian government has made all this possible. Who would have thought that an investor-driven, climate-focused nonprofit from New York,
That's a hell of a mouthful.
it's how we brand ourselves.
It's confusing, it's stumbly, it's crud.
It's what I do. Who would have thought that an investor-driven, climate-focused nonprofit from New York could have such real-world impact?
Lisa wants me to go. Lisa wants me to get her some silk saris. I need you to go with me.
Why?
Because you speak Indian, Ashok.
You mean Hindi?
Exactly. You'll get us a good bargain.
Fine, we'll go tomorrow after my brunch with the Home Affairs Minister.
What's that about?
He wants me to invest in some failed Belt and Road project up north.
Good luck with that.
The sound of someone knocking on the door, Christine checks her watch.
I'm not done with my makeup.
Christine exits to go into the bathroom. Ashok strides to the door of the suite. He looks out through the peephole, curses under his breath, and does not open the door. Another knock on the door.
Please get that, honey.
Ashok opens the door slightly. We see Benji through the crack.
This is not a good time.
And when? You've been avoiding me ever since you got here.
Tomorrow afternoon, the Dosa place at Mangdala's market.
Christine re-enters the suite. Ashok hurriedly shuts the door.
We don't need that tonight. Thank you.
Bellboy?
Ashok nods. Scene 2. The cacophonous sounds of the busy streets of Mumbai, a roadside dosa restaurant. Ashok and Benji are seated across each other.
So you got your big award last night.
Ashok nods.
How does it feel?
It's the culmination of years of hard work.
You know what mom got for her years of hard work?
Ashok stands up to leave.
Fine, walk away. It's what you've always done anyway.
What do you want from me, Benji?
Why didn't you ever bring us over to New York?
A tense silence washes over them. Ashok slowly sits back down.
It was complicated. My business failed. I was in a lot of debt.
When I was little, I used to walk with mom to the post office on Fridays to send you the letter she had spent all week writing. Then when I was 9, we stopped. When I asked her why, she simply said, Baba's moved on. That's the last she ever spoke of you. She doesn't even know you're here in Mumbai or that I'm meeting you. She's dying, you know. The doctors say she has less than 6 months.
But how? Why?
The clothes factory she's worked at is right by the coal plant. She's been breathing in those fumes for years. So those carbon reductions you're parading to your politician friends mean nothing to mom and everyone else who worked in that factory.
A silence washes over them again.
Benji, son, you have to believe me. There was nothing I could have.
I'm not here to listen to some excuse for why you did what you did. I just wanted you to know the cost of what you've done.
Benji stands up to leave. Ashok takes out his wallet and pulls all the notes out of it. He rushes to put them into Benji's hand.
For her, for you.
Benji looks down at the money in his hand. A moment. Christine walks towards Ashok and Benji carrying bulging shopping bags.
Ashok? There you are. I've been looking all over for you.
Benji looks at Ashok one last time as Christine approaches them.
I got a good price for the saris. No thanks to you.
Benji walks away from them. Ashok watches him walk away.
Who's that, Ashok? Ashok?
Ashok does not reply and continues watching. Benji with an odd look on his face. The cacophonous sounds of Mumbai take over. Lights fade. End of play. Bio. Zizi Majid is a Malay Singaporean playwright based in New York City whose plays advocate for a shared community. Her award-winning plays have been staged in New York City, Singapore, and China. For 5 years, Zizi was artistic director of Theatre Akamatra, Singapore, successfully breaking into the mainstream during her tenure, tripling audiences and garnering multiple awards. Awards: Young Artist Award, National Arts Council Singapore, Fellow of WP Theatre's 2020 to 2022 Lab, NYC, MFA Playwriting, Columbia University. This one's interesting. Like of the series that we've been reading so far, it has a very different pattern. It's a little bit more. It's a play of people talking to each other in relationships that are affected by the climate crisis, but it's less directly about it. It's more about the human. I said relationships already in the sentence, but like how the relationships are affected by it. In many ways, the stress put upon this family because of death resultant of pollution. It just centers things a little bit differently, which is kind of interesting. I said interesting twice again in that sentence too, but it's interesting in that the scene has its own setting that's posh and fancy. Not to say that it needs to be. As designers, we often look at those notes and throw them out the window, rightfully so, a lot of the time. So I'm curious the instincts we have, or us four have, towards, is it good to see that opulence while having these discussions for that contrast, or working in sort of a theme within that world? Like what if this is not accurate for this play, but such as maybe like a glass table made of ice, for instance, right? Like what can look opulent but also have this double-edged meaning?
Mm-hmm. I think that it's like the whole thrust of the play seems to be complicating success, and this, because they've set it in the future, like in a more successful future than will actually exist. It's felt like at the beginning we wanted to celebrate the couple because they're, you know, Ashok is like this eco investor. Like he's it seems as though he's made these great changes that are sort of like impossible for us to imagine, or are sort of like the goals of our current climate arguments, that like these are the kinds of people or like businesses that we need to invest in. And then we see that even at that level of success or like ecological activism, there's still like complicated pitfalls, which is pretty, you know, it's uncomfortable. We want to imagine like, if only we had done things differently, everything would be perfect, you know. It's like, so I'm not sure what the reminder is there, but
it was interesting. I agree with you, and I was trying to find if there's this other story happening, this narrative in the background, always mining for those. Mining's a horrible term, but looking for those little secrets or themes. And it's interesting looking at the characters, even themselves, and the specificity of them to a certain degree. That we have Ashok, who is the CEO of Econo Invest, who we don't know the history there. And thank you for reminding me, it's in the future. This is set in the near future, but it's still the future. So there changes happen that we're on the other side of this. And it is about, in a strange way, this relationship of these corporations to the government as well. And we're looking at a marriage that's also struggling in its own way, that he has not told her about a son from a previous marriage, right? Like that's a huge sort of secret of eco investing in a way from this upper class white woman of America, right? This idea of relationships that are across country and experience as well, and keeping secrets of that past from each other. And I wonder what the analogy the playwright is hoping to intend with that relationship to the ecosystem, but to the system of eco-politics, and how there is sometimes disinvestment in actually making the change, and more on the company side of it, of getting that awareness out and that sort of machination, that we lose this human component. But I don't know. I might be rambling.
No, I feel what you're saying. Like, I think that they're like, by highlighting the opulence of like this eco investors like climate movement, it shows how disconnected it is from, you know, people who are literally his family. So I think like, you know, showing the contrast between those relationships is amazing. And I was also struck by this whole like, oh, I'm having brunch with the minister to like invest in some Belts and Road initiative, which is like, I didn't even know what that was, and I just looked it up, and I was like, okay, right, it's an infrastructure project for like probably remote communities. So like he's already like discounting like, I guess, like projects that would help people who like are not in some way like I don't know, part of the glamorous like privileged eco movement. So like that was like, I don't know, to me, yeah, it's really about like the risk that we take of like the sustainability movement just being like something that benefits like people who already have a lot of privilege and like does not actually take consideration for the people who are affected most by it. But yeah, I think by making this about these relationships, it's, I don't know, it's a really strong play.
I think too, for like showing the opulence, it's a good, so like that in the old marriage, he's like this successful eco investor now, and then his wife or ex-wife or is dying from the fumes of like the clothing factory she worked in. So it's kind of this idea of like, you have these two extremes, like someone really suffering from a not ethical or ecological job at all, and then he's this eco investor who doesn't even know that like she's has those issues now. So I think just showing that it's like very opulent, it also drives home that his character is like has a blatant disregard almost for his family and like the relationships in his life. And for him, it's more about, it seems, the money and like his idea of success and like corporate greed and all that kind of things that we know contribute to like our situation that we're in environment wise now.
Absolutely. It's 11:43. We can keep talking about this one or all the plays we've read for the last 15, or we can try to get one more in with 10 minutes of discussion. It might be a little bit rushed, and I don't want to disservice the works. Have you started a reading before in the past? Oh, beautiful.
At this time, yeah, we definitely have. Like, we can, if we want to just read more, we can get through it, unless we want to keep discussing. Like,
Love it. So the next one on our list is Small But Mighty by Mwendie Mbugua. And it looks lovely. It's 3 pages. I think we can get through this.
All right, let's do it. I think it's one voice. Ooh, okay.
Who does the monologue? Not me this time.
I'll do the monologue. If someone else wants to take the stage directions.
I can do that. Okay, Small But Mighty by Mwendie Mbugua. How did you say this name, Joe? You did a good job.
Might be wrong with it. Mwendie Mbugua.
Mbugua, yeah, that sounded correct. Okay. This short story was inspired by, there's a quote. "It's the little things citizens do. That's what will make the difference." Wangari Maathai. This short story was inspired by my father-in-law, a passionate environmentalist whose mission is to green Kenya and Africa and to build on food sustainability. His love for bees opened the door to this story. My passion is writing for children, so this monologue is written for children aged 4 to 7 years old. The hope is to introduce them to alternate views on industrial agriculture. Setting. Open on a simple stage that is decorated to look like a garden. It could be a screen or use live plants around the stage. If possible, sound effects of a gentle brook and garden sounds in the background. Something like this would work nicely. Oh, and there's a YouTube link. Copyright for this is reserved, so please get all necessary permissions. We enter the world of the bees. Temu, an animated man or woman dressed as a bee, is strolling, deeply smelling flowers and taking a long drink from the brook. Satisfied, they then take a seat on a stool, close their eyes, and enjoy the sounds of the garden. They open their eyes, peer out. Ah, company has arrived.
Jumbo. Hello, boys and girls, bees and drones. Welcome to the garden. As you take a break before your next stop, I'd like to share with you a short tale about a hero bee called Asali, a bee so brave that she saved her entire hive from extinction. This garden right here wasn't always as beautiful as this. It all began when Bwana farmer moved in. At first, he was harmless. The creatures paid him no heed. The plants continued to bloom and insects would play in the wind. Then came a day that none of us would ever forget. Bwana farmer brought a large container we had never seen before that evening, and he sprayed the flowers and the plants. Little did we know the next day would tell a different story. Every bee was up and early out in the fields, pollinating, carrying pollen from flower to flower, and enjoying the feel of the golden sun on their delicate wings. When suddenly we noticed one bee after the other falling, dying. They had been poisoned by the spray. It was a very tragic day. Asali and her friends survived and managed to do so for a while, but Bwana farmer kept spraying. He believed this would help his fruits and vegetables grow better, that this in turn would allow him to sell more produce at the local market, and he would eventually buy a bigger truck. He did not realize what this was doing to the life in the garden. One day, Asali has had enough. She sought wise counsel from Mama Nyuki, the oldest and wisest bee in the colony. Mama Nyuki listened to Asali's cries and concern and thought she had no answers for her. She reminded Asali that even though she was small, she was mighty, and that she can make a difference. That was all Asali needed to hear. That night, she could not sleep. Buzzing to the left and buzzing to the right. Even the sounds of the gentle bubbling brook did not calm her down. A plan was formulating. Early the next morning, she shared it with her hive. It was very simple, with just one step. Friends, she said, Bwana farmer has been poisoning us for some time now, and we have lost many because of it. Before he came, the garden was alive and home to many of us. We need to return to our peaceful days. This is what we shall do. All the bees gathered round to listen. Tomorrow, she shared, we don't go to work. No work? Yes, no work tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that one. What difference will it make? How will we spend our days? Some of the bees protested. We shall rest and do no pollinating. Just wait and see. If we do this together, we will make a big difference. Asali won the hive over. The next morning, they did not go to work. The garden was silent. Day 2, silent. Day 3, 7, 10, 19, 26, 32, all silent. Bwana farmer grew concerned. There was no singing, no dancing, and no buzzing, just a very quiet garden. And you can imagine his shock when a few days later, he went to pluck strawberries and found no fruit there. Tomato vines, nothing there either. Cucumbers and carrots, empty stalks too. Oh my, what would he sell? What would he do? Deeply concerned, he called for a meeting with Asali, Mama Nyuki, and the leaders. They explained to Bwana farmer that they had downed their tools because the poison was killing them. I am truly sorry, he said. Together, they reached an agreement that would stop spraying and let the bees thrive. After a few days, the garden began to flourish again. Soon, everyone at the local market made a beeline for Bwana farmer's delicious berries and golden honey. On seeing this, the other farmers in the area started doing the same. And that's how this garden became as lovely as you see it today, all because of one small single bee who believed she could make a big, big difference. I believe, boys and girls, bees and drones, that you can too.
And Temu rises and continues to enjoy the garden. Mwendie, Mbugua, oh my gosh, Mbugua? Joe, help me.
I don't actually.
Mbugua.
Mbugua. Mbugua. Mwendie Mbugua is a communication practitioner, author, and Sundance Theatre Lab artist in residence. She has always had a passion for theatre and been involved in staging several Easter and Christmas musicals in her hometown, Nairobi, Kenya. In 2016, her dream of being an author was realized, and she launched her first children's book, Don't Turn Off the Lights. She currently lives in California with her husband and 2 children.
I love this play so much. I
This
love
is
it.
great for kids. Like, this should be performed in all schools and like community settings.
Yes.
Like, I love that she's writing for ages 4 to 7, because I'm like, that's when you need to instill these values. Like, spraying your garden with chemicals is bad for all the little creatures, and giving them, you know, personas to like care about. It's just sweet. And I don't know. I enjoyed the storytelling of it.
Yeah, I liked the like, first of all, the sort of beautiful image that you would be watching during the play of like a beautiful garden and like a human dressed as a bee. That sounds really fun. And also the like early concept education of like a strike.
Yes.
What does it mean to stop working? You know,
Yes.
I was thinking of the Winnipeg General Strike when I was reading, or when this was being read.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. And then also the communication between the bees and the farmer. I'm like, they meet together to talk. I'm like, I love that. Like, are you listening to them? Are you like, yeah, it's so interesting.
I work
Sorry, Jeff.
really closely. No worries. I work closely with an organic farm now in this region with my partner's work. He's a distiller, so they grow their own grains to make to distill into spirits that I can enjoy. And then it goes back to the cycle to cows locally to feed them for feed. And bees are a really huge proponent of the farm. So they had, I forget how many hives, colonies died last winter because of just the way the winter was and the way the bees behaved. They weren't able to insulate themselves as well as they usually do. And they didn't make it through the winter. And that was a huge impact on the farm. And a lot of farmers in this region at least have their own colonies to support each other's farms if that happens, which is nice, but it wasn't always the way. The segue on that one is I love that we open on the garden, and I think there is an opportunity, especially with kids, to be super sensory, to make it like big and lush and colorful, and the smells of all those different florals and the cucumber, the sound of the crunch, the little snack even. Wouldn't that be lovely to have little cucumber bits? Cucumbers are just so good because they give me water and I'm always dehydrated. So I love cucumbers and watermelon. Like most watery vegetable is my favorite thing in the world. But I just love this lush garden, and then the story being dark and about it wasn't always that way, but look at how beautiful it can be. I like that offering of beauty, and I would want to really lean into that. I love the instinct of having a real garden. I think is right more so than projection, but not to say that a projector would be bad. I think a projection is still good, but I don't know about you. I'm now sharing an office. This is my main office, but at the school, just so I can have one-on-ones with students. And the person who's on sabbatical loves plants, and you're gonna get this, Michelle, and anyone with plants in their house. My partner's not good with plant survivability. They don't make it usually in our household, but I'm surrounded by plants now on the daily, and the smell and the energy of that room is so beautiful. I'm now becoming a plant person, so much so that I need to change this house. But my dog loves eating soil. He's unfortunately a survivor. He's a rescue. So we think he had a lot of soil to get through some bad times in the past. And now he likes to, like, fresh soil is his, like, it's a cake to him. It's full of nutrients.
Oh my gosh.
It's a mess. We're teaching him not to eat the dirt and have good food for him.
Man, I'm so lucky that my dog is not interested at all in the dirt or the plants, but yeah.
Yeah. That tactile, real earthen smell. I think the show really could be lovely. And real bees if possible, but I know that can be a danger.
I totally agree, Joe. I think this would be such a great show to have like educational programming around about like basic gardening for kids and like organic gardening for adults. I am like personally on a journey of, well, organic gardening, indoor gardening, obviously. I am also attempting it with my outdoor plants, like organic gardening, but I'm currently going through a series of experiments of biological pest control. So I have tried to like completely eliminate any kind of chemicals from my indoor garden. But I also have like 45 plants. So I'm gonna have pests and like I'm living with the bugs. And I've started using beneficial insects to eat the pestiferous insects. So I feel like that would be like a really cool thing to like educate people on like alternatives to spraying your garden and just like making sure natural predators are able to be present and that you're like creating a welcome environment for them. That could be really cool kind of programming like to go along with this type of play. Yeah, I literally like I've been having fun with it actually, and I realized like I'm not actually scared of bugs like when I like begin to like understand them and like yeah, so that would be something I'd be interested in sharing. It's like how to have like biodiversity in your garden so that you don't need to like work so hard for efficiency by like bringing in chemicals and like destroying natural systems and bees in so doing.
Any chance to do that's amazing, right? We have quite a bit of spiders in my basement. We also have a ladybug issue during the winter. And so we have a lot of multi-legged, large, long predators to deal with that ladybug situation. And it's always a discussion of, no, don't kill them. I know you hate them. I know they don't look pleasant, but they are keeping the balance of the ecosystem of the house so it doesn't get out of control. Like it's very much a controlled system because we live very close to the ground now than we used to. In our garden, similarly, we now have planted plants that naturally bring in predators for the pests. There are still some tomato pests that we also made the mistake of planting 2 tomato plants and 2 squash plants at the same time. And our yard is overrun by both because I let them free grow a little bit too much.
It happens. They just crawl and expand. I love it. You know, they're strong-willed beings.
But back to the play, I love it. And it's just so crisp. Refreshing. I'm glad we got to it before noon because I think I needed that to exit to actually.
Yeah, it was a great one to read at the end.
An absolute gift. I want to look at more of her work.
Great. Well, I'm definitely inspired.
Yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, especially because I'm expecting 2 babies. This idea of like plays for children is more interesting to me than it has been in the last while.
You calling or recalling?
Yeah.
Recalling. Beautiful. Well, thank you all for coming and being with us today. Those that had to leave early, also thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for asking me to host this one. It was a pleasure. I want to come to all of them, and I feel so bad at my own silly schedule and giving in to those capitalist whims of work and no time to think and meet.
Well, so is the recordings, you know, we're all here.
And there'll be more. So if you ever like somehow find yourself with an hour or like half an hour within the time slot, like you can pop in, but no pressure at all.
And it's fun to read. I didn't realize how
really
fun
fun
to read.
Yeah, it's really good to talk to designers about design ideas. Forgot how good that is. I hope the authors listen to the recordings because I feel like also we're kind of workshopping the plays.
Yeah, I hope they do too. And we apologize for mispronunciations, and I hope to meet you someday so that I can be corrected and build worlds together.
Yes.
We've been putting all the play readings on YouTube, but I realized I should go through and actually timestamp when the play reading when each play starts, because that would be so useful just to like go back and be able to listen to a play. So maybe I'll put that on my to-do list to like improve our recordings so people can jump to the plays. Yeah.
Nice.
I think I can do that after the fact.
Good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording here.